On today's episode, we're creating this wolf painting. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'm kind of excited about this tutorial today. I got this really cool stock image of a wolf which you can go ahead and download. I'll link it in the description below. But it's really cool, but there's some issues with it that we got to take care of before we turn this into a painting. And this is very important when you are making paintings or any kind of images and things like that. You got to kind of look at things on your image and see if you need to correct anything. And we are photo editors, right? So it's all about correcting things for us and making art and all that fun stuff. Now, here's what I mean about the problem area on this image. Okay, see this light area underneath the wolf here? My eye is being drawn to that area, and that's not going to look good once we make a painting because we're going to see a big white blob of paint here. It's not going to look good. And these sticks up here look a little wonky to me. And some of this area back in here is a little bit light. And I went ahead and cleaned up those areas. And I used Tony Kuiper's frequency separation action to take care of that. You'll find his actions if you have the TK panels in the combo or CX panel under actions. You're going to find frequency separation inside of here. Now I've done a video on this, and I'll link it at the end of this video so you can watch it if you want to see how I do all that frequency separation. And it's really easy to do with the aid of Tony's action to set up the frequency separation, but you can use a healing tool or a clone stamp to do this. But watch that video, and I think you'll get an idea of how powerful frequency separation can be. But I'll show you my frequency separation layer. It's right here. I'll turn it on. So this is what it looks like after frequency separation. And inside here, you can see the different layers inside of here. But watch that video. You'll understand what that's all about. Frequency separation, do not be afraid of it. It is super easy to do. But I don't want to waste all my time showing you how I did all that right now. Go back and watch that video because we want to get into making art here. But anyway, here's the before and here's the after. And as you can see, it really cleaned the image up rather nicely. After I finished the frequency separation, I went ahead and stamped everything to a layer and named it TOPAZ Studio 2 Impression for the impression filter, so I remember what I did. But anyway, you need to go into TOPAZ Studio 2 with an actual image. You can't take that frequency separation layer into TOPAZ Studio 2. So you actually have to have an image that you're going to take in. So I'm going to go ahead and come up to Filter, and we're going to go ahead and launch TOPAZ Studio 2, and we shall start turning this into a painting. I'm going to use two different impression filters in TOPAZ Studio 2, one for the wolf and one for the background, okay? Now let's make the one for the wolf first. So let's go up to Add Filter. We're going to grab an impression filter, and we're going to really center on the fur of the wolf. And this is kind of important here. I'm just looking at my notes. I use brush 9. Now I went through different brushes and sampled them, and I highly recommend that. Go through your different brushes and find the brush that works the best. Because every time you click on a brush, you're going to get a different kind of result, right? But I went with 09, and the next thing I did was came down to texture, and I shut off on the background type, I changed it from solid to original, all right? And if there's any flecks of canvas showing through, that just gets rid of it. If you watch my other videos in the past, you know that I do that a good bit on my images. Okay, so I had the strokes on low, or no, I did not. I take that back. I had the stroke on high because I'm working on the wolf and I want a lot of nice detail in there. But brush 09, yes, I have brush 09 in there. Now the brush size, I went and started to play with the brush size. You know, I go one way, I go the other. See, if I go to the right, brush is way too big and I want to get that fur to have a lot of detail in it. So I'm going to pull back on the brush size, and I'm going to come back to right around 25, and then we have paint volume. And watch what happens when I pull up the paint volume. You see what's happening to the screen there, to the image? So I want a little bit of paint volume in there, and it puts a little bit of nice detail in there. And I went up to around 32 for that, and I'm just looking at the fur of the wolf. I'm not looking at the background here. And then a large brush. Let me just slide this down a little bit so we can see here. Here's a large brush volume. And what did I do on that? I took it back. Because you see when I move that to the right, what happens there? And I didn't like the way that looked, that texture in there, so I pulled it back to like a -35. But play with all these brushes, or all these sliders, and for the different brushes and things, because you never know what they're going to do unless you work with them. It's not rocket science, but you do have to play around a little bit. Okay, so that was the large brush, and then I went to the stroke width. And I didn't do anything with the stroke rotation, and I didn't touch the rotation variation or the color variation, but I did play with the stroke width. Now, this is important for the wolf itself because we want to bring out the fur on that wolf, okay? So what I did with the stroke width was to move the slider to the left to narrow down on the paint because I want to emulate or simulate fur. See, if I pull it out like that, you see I get more of that dotted type look, more like blobs of dots of paint, which is cool for certain types of images, but not on this one. So I'm going to take that stroke width and move it in, and I took it into like a -5. What I want is a very narrow width. So a -5 or 6, somewhere around there looks good. And now here's the secret here for the fur. You want to take the stroke length and you want to drag it the whole way to the right. And when you do, can you see how that fur really starts to elongate and things like that? So let me go ahead and move it in like so. Now I'll start to move it out, but see how it just grows. And that's what you want. You want that fur to grow out on you, and that is good. And then I played with the spill. Now if I take the spill to the right, see how the fur is really starting to get pronounced? Now, you don't want to go too crazy here. And what did I do? I went to like around a minus, or not a -25, but I went to around a +25. Where's it default at? If you double click these names of the sliders, it defaults at 0. Okay, so I went to like around a 25. I don't want to go too crazy, but right around a 25, I think does the trick for us. And anything else? I think I'm really happy with everything. I'm liking the direction. Now, we do have to mask off the background and just keep this on the foreground. And sometimes I'll use this painting progress. You probably see me use that slider in the past, so I'm not going to use it today, but don't forget about that one. That's a good one. Now, stay tuned till the end of this video because I'm going to show you how to enhance your images that you create inside of TOPAZ Studio 2 with some painting techniques inside of Photoshop. Very simple to do. I'll show you how we'll mask this onto the wolf, but first I want to do one more thing, and that's come down to a really cool tool inside of this impression filter, and that is the lighting tool. So let's open it up. I don't always use it, but I'm going to use it today. What I did here was just pulled up my contrast to like right around a 21, just to give it a little more contrast. And again, I'm only looking at the wolf. I don't care about the rest of the image because remember, I'm just masking this effect onto the wolf. Let's see, and then shadows, I pulled my shadows back just to enrich in the shadows, add a little more contrast, and I brought that back to like around a -21. And I think darkening up those shadows has done the trick here. Now next I'll show you how we'll mask this impression filter onto the wolf. We'll come up to the impression layer here and click on the layer mask icon and come to the 3 little dots here, click this and click invert. That hides the adjustment off of the image. Now all we need to do now is get a brush, and what we're going to do is simply change our transparency to pure white, and we can adjust the radius of our brush here. I'm going to start a little small and a little smaller than that actually, and paint the painting effect onto the wolf. I'm going to start with the ears right here. I think I might get rid of this area in Photoshop, so I'm still going to paint over it anyway. If I decide to keep it, great. If not, I'll fix it in Photoshop. But that looks good. I think I'll just go around the edges of the wolf first. Paint those in. And I love on the layer masking tool on TOPAZ Studio 2, you have this red overlay, which really helps. Let's get the edge of the fur, and then we'll get a bigger brush and paint all through the interior of the wolf. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to grab a bigger brush, and we got the nice outline. Kind of looks like a cow. Oh well. It's not. It's a wolf. I don't want this wolf to think I'm calling it a cow. It may attack me. So let me go ahead and paint him in here. Got to make these little noises. These little noises really help you to get really good painting. Very cool. I might remove some of it from his eye, or not. I don't. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Let's make our brush a little bit smaller here and just paint in the rest of this area right up in here. I think I got most of them. There's a few little spots I missed. I'm not going to go too crazy in here, but let me make sure I got those spots. Oh, and I missed some of the edge in here, so let me go around. Not going to be a big deal, but let's just fix it. Okay, close enough. I think it's good, but you get the idea. So far so good. I like it. Now we're going to work on the background next. Let's go ahead and add another impression filter. Now this is going to be simple. All we're going to do here is I'm going to use type 06 for my brush, and I'm going to leave my strokes on low. And already it's taking a nice abstract look back here, but I'll show you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take my brush size, pull it the whole way back to the left. And this is what I was telling you about. You see the canvas showing through. So let me show you. I always do this, come down to texture. And now you'll see, sometimes you might say, I don't really see a change today, but watch when I change this from solid to original and see how everything gets really nice. Now, really what I'm looking for is a nice, smooth background on this image. And already that's looking pretty good. Now, let's just go ahead and, so here's our paint opacity. Maybe I'll pull this in a little bit. I want just a slight amount of texture back in there. And let's play with the stroke width. You know, I just want a slight amount of texture and the length. Maybe, yeah, just like right around there. And then I'm going to take this smudge and start to pull it to the right a little bit. Now, I'm not worrying about the wolf, but isn't that cool, the effect on the hair there? But it's going to make the edges here that stick out a little bit. You'll see a little bit of sharp edge to them, which will be nice. I'll keep working with the smudge a little bit, so I'm going to move it in to the left. And I just want a little bit of that in there. And basically what I'm doing with this smudge is just adding a little bit of extra smoothness to the background. I think that looks good, and now all we need to do is mask this adjustment off the wolf. And what we can do is come up to this impression layer, the first one that we did of the wolf. I'm going to right click this and click copy the mask, and then simply right click on this layer mask icon on the background layer we just worked on and click paste mask. And you'll see that we've pasted the mask, but it's the opposite of what we need, right? So we removed it from the background. We want to keep it on the background. So just come to the three dots here, click this, and click invert, and voila, there we go. Now our wolf is sticking out, you know, from the background, and we have some nice contrast there. I'm just noticing on the mask, it missed a little space right there. So let's just get a brush. It's not hurting anything, but make sure you're on black transparency. And just come on that edge and just paint that in. Like I said, it wasn't really hurting anything, but I just want to show you how we can fix that just like that. And now the last thing I want to do is come up to add a filter. And one last thing in TOPAZ Studio 2, add a precision contrast filter. Now I only want to add this to the wolf. And so what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it very selectively too, by the way. So let's just adjust our contrast. I just want to add a little bit more contrast to our wolf. So I'm going to work with the low contrast. Now don't worry about the background. A little bit of medium here. Just a little wee bit, not too much. Any high? No, I don't want high, because if I get high, it's going to make these light areas too light. Watch when I move this to the right. You see that? So I got to be careful. In fact, I may pull the high back a little bit. Okay, just like so. And then let's try micro. Do I want any micro in there? I don't think I do. I'm going to leave the micro right where it is at 0, so I'm going to double click micro, get it back. Here's the before the precision contrast, and just look at the wolf, and here's the after. Before and after, and I think that looks good. And so let's go ahead and still this layer mask, and it still should be in my computer's buffer. So if I come up to this layer mask and right click and say paste the mask, it should, yeah, it just pastes it right on the wolf. So let's see, here's the before. And here's the after. And that's it. That's all we have to do. Now just take a little bit of time and study your image. And if you're totally happy with it, all we need to do now is come up here and click accept. And that'll send us right back into Photoshop. And now we're back in Photoshop. So we've come from here and went to here. But you see all that light, how that would have looked? That would have been horrible. And even this light on here, I took care with that frequency separation. But here's the before and here's the after. Now, I just want to show you, remember I told you to stick to the end, because I'm going to show you how this area down here is a little bit light, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to take care of this very simply with a little bit of painting in Photoshop. This is fun and easy to do. And this will really help you to take your painterly type images and take them a step further, you can do some further painting in Photoshop, which is fun. All you need to do is come and get a blank pixel layer because you don't want to paint on your pixel layer itself. I'm just going to use a basic brush, the brush I always use, but I also have some special brushes that I downloaded for free on the Adobe website, and someday I'll show you how you can get those if you don't have them. They're brush packs from a guy named Kyle T. Webster, and there's all kind of really cool like impressionistic brushes and different things in there, which is really cool, and I use these a lot, especially on my paintings and my artwork, and I'll show you that later in another video, not today. I'm just going to use a basic brush here. So I'm going to use a basic brush. I have my opacity at 30%. All I'm going to do is sample some of these darker colors in here. And what I'm going to do is just simply paint on here. Okay, I just want to darken some of this area up. Now I'm just moving my brush in the same direction that the hairs are flowing, and I'm just using that dark paint. But you see that I'm just painting on there just with a brush, pure and simple, easy, you know, and that's just going to darken some of that stuff up, you know, and I could even paint out in here if I want to, add to these hairs, but you get the idea here. I'm not going to spend all day doing this, but I just want you to see what you can do. You already turned it into a painting, right? Just have a nice shaky hand and go in the directions the paint's moving in. You'll fix it. And then I can maybe change my opacity to like 10% and maybe make my brush a little bit bigger, and just, you can smooth some of these areas out by painting like a little bit of 10% over areas. It'll just darken things up a little bit with just that raw paint. And just like so, I went ahead and darkened that area down, and it was already, you know, it was already paint on there, so I'm just adding a little bit of extra paint on there, just to keep our eye from going down in there. Now, here's the before and after. Now, I'd keep working on it, but you see that, how nice that's got. And if you ever go too far, you can always take your opacity, pull it off, and then just build it up slowly. But in my case, I think I need all that. In fact, I might just put my brush back up to 30%, and I'm just going to paint a little bit, a little bit more in here. Make sure I have a nice small brush. That's too big. Remember, you're painting hair, Dave. You're painting hair, man. Okay. But just with that 30%, and all you have to do is make it look believable. But I think that's good. I think I'm going to be happy with that right there. And I hope you can see the possibility here. It's not hard to do. You don't have to be Van Gogh to do this. Just paint over hair. You know, it's simple. I mean, you can come up in areas like back here. I was going to go here, but I like that. It looks good. But up in here, I could sample some of these darker tones and, you know, just go like that. Let's paint some of that in there. Give it a little more opacity. How about like 50% maybe, and just, you know, make my brush a little smaller and paint a little bit of hair up in here. But you get the idea, right? Just make sure the hairs are going in the same direction. You know, keep them flowing around. But just like so, you can maybe out in here a little bit, because this area's a little bit light, right? So maybe I'll just tone it down. But this is what I meant when I said stick around to the end. I'll show you how to get your image to that next level. Because a lot of times you're going to say, man, I don't like the way Topaz handled that part. But you can come in here and you can fix this stuff. But just like that. And I'd spend a little more time on working that a little bit more. But I think I'm done. But here it is before this little extra painterly layer, and here it is after. So I just touched it up a little bit, but you get the idea. But take your time and do it right. I took a small 10-minute break from my video just to finish painting in a little bit more, just to show you. Here's the before I painted some extra in, and here's the after. So as you can see, that technique, it's very simple to do, and it's very effective. Well, there it is. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you learned a lot. This is a fun little image to make. Give this one a try, but try that painting technique at the end where you can go ahead and fill little areas in. I have some more work that I could do on this for sure, but with some of that painting at the end, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click the bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing.